Do you also trust the slave? Whereas the truth of God's word does not change, our understanding of the truth does change because we are not perfect yet. We understand more about the truth today than Christians in the first century. Do we keep up with the progressive understanding of truth? Daniel was told, "Many will rove about, and the true knowledge will become abundant." This is a gradual process. We are still roving about.
But now let's discuss how we as Christians can make wise decisions using Bible principles rather than relying on a list of rules.
So what new hell have we got now?
New light.
New light.
Lots of new light.
Yeah.
Well, as you can tell from the beginning clip, first I want to say that when I first went to jw.org to grab this governing body update, I told Mike, I said, "Oh, look, a governing body member isn't even doing it." I didn't even recognize Let.
Well, you know why? Because Let is as pasty white as he is.
Well, I know the glasses, but I mean, he is really aged. And I know we all have aged, but still, I didn't even recognize him.
Yeah.
So, yes, we have some new hell, and it's very infuriating for those of us that were in the organization for almost our entire lives, because they have done nothing but push rules.
Propaganda. Every Christian faith uses the Bible as a means of propaganda. They'll use what fits their ideology at the time. And like I said a long time ago, they have no choice but to change who and what they are, because the generation of 1914 is dead and gone, and the governing body is even still here, putting their pasty white faces in front of the camera. But Jehovah's Witnesses will never get this, because they would much rather believe the propaganda than they would believing what's in front of their own eyes.
Yeah. Now, we're talking about the governing body update number 4 that just came out the end of June 2025. And it's like, oy vey.
Sad. It's really, really sad.
Well, it's good for the current Jehovah's Witnesses, because now they're not going to be making rules. You can make up your own mind. Now, they give an illustration of, when you have kids and you're like, "I always hold my hand when you cross the road," but you wouldn't want a grown man when you're 30 years old still holding your mama's hand to cross the road. You have the ability to look at the traffic in front of you and cross it safely. So, they're trying to push this new light as, them making rules and using your own Bible-trained conscience. Now, what I noticed is it appears that they're saying that all of these customs that used to think were pagan are now okay, depending on the land and customs of your area. So it made me wonder, are birthdays okay? Are they finding out that a lot of JWs are celebrating birthdays, and they're kind of going towards softening all of these rules?
The other thing I wanted to ask you is that I know the Jehovah's Witnesses really advocate returning to the biblical text as source material, and that you try to live your life as closely to the Bible as possible. This includes practices that are rather unconventional, like not accepting blood transfusions or not celebrating birthdays. This is something that has kind of created a stereotype around Jehovah's Witnesses. Just wanted a bit more clarity on these kinds of practices, and how does one go about living like a Jehovah's Witness in a modern society?
Well, yes, I mean, it's everything is personal decision. While we have our publications which explains the Bible principles, But each individual has to decide whether he wants to follow that or not. So it's personal responsibility. Each one carries his own load, just the Bible says. So yeah, that is what we believe and what we practice. In fact, Jehovah's Witnesses give high regard to life, very high regard to life. We have instructions that even if you're traveling by a scooter, the pillion rider should also wear a helmet. Is because not to be, to be caught or just to save face with the law enforcement agencies, but life is precious. So the principle is life is precious, and that is why we do things. So we have a high regard for life, whether, riding a scooter, riding a car, or even in case of blood transfusion. Jehovah's Witnesses give high regard to life, but it's a personal decision. And we are also happy that the medical community has come up with very much, transfusion alternatives. And each Jehovah's Witness decides, according to his Bible-trained conscience, which kind of medical care he will go for or not.
Told you so. I've said it before. Under much criticism from ex-Jehovah's that said we were full of shit way back then by making these statements. And yet, here we are, sitting in front of the camera with these guys changing who and what they are. They're no longer rural pushers, but I guarantee you, that ain't gonna work. You know why? Because you have so many other dumbass elders that are still gonna push rules because they're gonna use the Bible and Watchtower literature the way they seem fit, not the way the rank and file seems fit. Mark my words, because it's a business model.
Well, before we play this clip about customs that they're changing now, I want to mention, just a few years ago, weren't they pushing the rule that you had to get the jab if you wanted to go to your pioneer meetings and your elders and ministerial servant meetings?
Well, it just goes to show how confused their God Jehovah is.
Well, like the title, which was a good title that you came up with, by the way, they are the most consistently inconsistent religion on earth.
Well, look at the elders letter you read for July. Hey, is there any Jehovah's out there that know AI? Wait a minute, it wasn't too long ago when they were totally disparaging the use of the internet because it's Satan's tool. And yet here they are now. We need brothers and sisters that know how to do AI. So now you're turning to Satan's tool. But back then you made a rule, and now you're breaking those rules. Hypocrites.
Yeah. So let's play the clip that caught our attention about customs.
Likewise, mature Christians don't need a rule for every situation. Instead, we look at each situation and consider Bible principles. If no Bible law is directly involved, then we use our Bible-trained conscience to make a good decision. For example, consider the use of symbols or customs that may have roots in false religion. In our vast organization that spans 240 lands, can you imagine how many different symbols and customs our brothers encounter? How can we make good decisions about the use of a certain symbol or custom? Well, here are 3 basic principles to consider. Number 1, would Jehovah be offended by this? At 2 Corinthians 6:17, Jehovah gives us clear direction. Therefore, get out from among them and separate yourselves, says Jehovah, and quit touching the unclean thing, and I will take you in. This principle emphasizes that Christians must stay far away from any symbol or custom related to false religion or spiritism. Another example is toasting or clinking glasses. For years, Jehovah's Witnesses have avoided this practice because it may have had origins in false religion. However, now, in most places, Toasting or clinking glasses no longer has any religious association. It is viewed simply as a friendly custom. Therefore, after prayerful consideration, the governing body has concluded that there is no need to make a rule regarding toasting and clinking glasses. Each Christian should use the principles that we have discussed in this update and his own Bible-trained conscience to make a good decision. What does this mean? Are we saying that toasting is okay now at all times and in every situation? Of course not. We are simply saying that there is no need to make a rule. Each Christian will need to use Bible principles to make a good decision in each instance. Since there are so many different situations that could arise in the 240 lands where Jehovah's people serve, what a blessing that Jehovah has given us these Bible principles. Let's briefly review them. First, and most important, we love Jehovah and always want to please Him. So we might ask ourselves, would Jehovah be offended by the toast? For example, is it associated with a religious or nationalistic holiday? Or is it a simple expression or gesture promoting friendship or health? Second, we love our brothers and sisters and would not want to needlessly offend them. We respect their feelings and their conscience. And third, because we love Jehovah and people, we are sensitive to how any custom is viewed in our own local culture or community.
So if you caught it, they're saying like the custom of making toast and clinking glasses may have been pagan thousands of years ago, but in your area it may not be at this time. It's just well wishes, Mikey, how many JW weddings have we gone to our entire lives where they actually made an announcement at the reception to the worldly family and friends that were there that they wouldn't be making toast and clinking glasses because of their beliefs that it was pagan origins?
Every single solitary one of them.
Well, I have to wonder how many JWs have been disfellowshipped because of maybe doing a custom, maybe going to a funeral or a wedding
In another church.
in another church. So are they going to have to change all of this?
I make a prediction. You'll never hear something like this come out of this knucklehead's mouth. We're sorry that we disfellowshipped you all.
Yeah.
It's never going to happen. Because these men have made rules and they have no choice but to change them now because their religion is dying. No matter what this knucklehead said about these other countries experiencing all this growth and how many tens got baptized, not tens of thousands, tens of hundreds, how many tens got baptized, they make it look so grandiose. When we've already been looking at photographs sent to us by PMOs from here in the United States, you can't even fill a friggin' bathroom with the amount of Jehovah's Witnesses that are in the auditorium. I mean, you made a good point. When we used to go, on the auditorium floor, they would seat all the older people and there would be, just row after row after row of chairs from the podium, the platform, all the way to the back exit. You're not seeing that no more.
Yeah. Thank you very much for the photo. I appreciate that. Well, when I was listening to this, I'm thinking, okay, so are they hinting now about the birthdays, since they're no longer considered pagan celebrations and customs and origins, and now it's widely accepted, at least here in this country, are JW's going to be disfellowshipped for celebrating birthdays. So, are you going to go apologize to all the Jehovah's Witnesses that were disfellowshipped for celebrating birthdays and holidays now?
But look at this. Jehovah's Witnesses are the only Christian group of people that don't celebrate birthdays, because they're the only ones that infer, because the 2 deaths in the Bible, propaganda once again, that they're pagan. They're the only Christian group that does this. And if there is some other obscure Christian group that doesn't celebrate holidays, you can bet your bottom dollar that that pastor used to be a Jehovah.
Well, we know our Muslim friend doesn't celebrate birthdays or holidays.
But he's not Christian.
No, he's a Muslim. Yeah, so very similar beliefs, believe me.
Well,
and he acts just like a Jehovah too. Well, we found so many articles going back even as recent as 2007, 2008, and even in the God's Love book, under the chapter Celebrations That Displease God. And here on page 158, Making Wise Decisions, they even mention making toast. See?
Okay.
Customs and celebrations that displease God. That is very definite. A very, what's the word, strong rule.
Yeah, well, here's what the uninformed person, the uninformed Jehovah Witness never thinks about, Kim. Okay? Every time a toast is made, it's generally done with alcohol, libations, right? Okay, even at weddings, even at birthdays, even when you're at the bar and you just toast and clink, beer bottles. Here's to you, my buddy. Okay, you're doing this all over alcohol. How in, pray tell, is it any different at the Last Supper? Oh God, bless this glass of wine because this wine represents my blood. You're doing the same freaking thing, only what you've done now is you call it a prayer instead of a toast. There's really no difference in it, friends.
Good point. It's basically the same.
It's the same thing.
Speaking of uninformed, so I was looking, in the JW library for articles about toasting and stuff, because we know in the past it's all been bad and pagan custom. Questions from readers. The 2007 Watchtower, February 15th, page 3031, questions from readers.
So this doesn't happen to be one of the ones that, governing body member Let found to read, is it?
No, he didn't read this one.
Oh, okay. Oh, so they actually pick and choose which one still meets what they're trying to, sell for the current bullshit.
Well, this just goes along with the uninformed Jehovah Witness.
Yeah.
So the questions from the readers is, the Bible does not mention toasting. So why do Jehovah's Witnesses avoid sharing in toast? Okay, and they go on to explain it. They never correct the JW or, qualify it, clarify it, whatever you want to call it. But they talk about the custom of drinking health to the living is most probably derived from ancient religious rite of drinking to the gods and the dead. So it's basically, them offering libations to their gods and dead ancestors. So they never correct the Jehovah Witness, but I can prove that this JW is wrong because the Bible does mention toasting.
Yeah. What about the night Babylon fell?
Well, I was going to say, Ezra.
Yeah.
The scripture in Ezra, King Belshazzar and all of his grandees were toasting to their gods. When the writing came on the wall, that was toasting. So the Bible does mention toasting. So like Mike has mentioned before, many Jehovah's Witnesses don't even know their own Bible.
No. Well, you mentioned a toast to the living and to the toast of good health. But, honestly, oh, Jehovah, bless this wine, because those that drink this wine that represents my blood will have everlasting life. How is that not a toast to good health? But see, once again, they hide it with a bullshit word such as, oh, it was a prayer.
Yeah.
They'll never see it, Kim, any more than Ted Cruz will see what an idiot he made out of himself in front of Tucker Carlson.
He doesn't know his Bible either.
No, he doesn't.
Yeah.
And I'll get to that in just a little bit.
So, even here in the All Scripture is Inspired book under Ezra, it talks about King Belshazzar, drinking and making toast to their pagan gods. And this is what they use to show that Jehovah's Witnesses shouldn't be making toast, because it's in the Bible that, it was a pagan thing to do. Well, that's the same thing. Hear me, governing body, Watchtower? This is the same thing you do for birthdays.
That's right.
Oh, well, the only two mentioned in the Bible were pagan celebrations where someone died. So we wouldn't want to celebrate our birthday. Well, isn't that the same thing as them making toast to their pagan gods? It may have been a bad thing thousands of years ago, but our birthdays looked bad upon, at least in this country now. No.
That's right.
No, it's a celebration of your life. And when you get at our age, believe me, every day is a celebration of life.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I found it interesting, too, that in, listening to one of the clips, they talk about, symbols don't have the same meanings like they used to. But yet, at the same time, you condemn all of these symbols and, mankind's search for God. And then yet, proudly, your JW.org symbol has now been pasted in the front cover.
Yeah, because he talks about idolatry also.
That's right. You've done the same thing. I mean, there's even Jehovah's Witnesses out there that got little tiny key fobs with JW.org on them. Come on, Jehovah's Witnesses. You will never realize how much these men are stealing your life away with this BS.
Now, I do have a clip of something interesting that I want to play.
Okay.
Because many of us use the Christmas, clear string lights year-round.
We get them in our house.
Yeah, as a nightlight.
Yeah.
We have them in our living room for at night when we're watching TV. But I want to play a clip of what he says.
An example that illustrates the importance of timing is string lights. Many Bethelites here at Warwick enjoy putting white string lights on their balconies as decorations, except during November and December. Why not then? Because in this region of the world, string lights are closely associated with Christmas, a false religious holiday. So our Bethel family avoids even the appearance of participating in that false religious celebration.
No, wait a minute. They take them down during the months of November and December. How many people drive in front of these lights that the Bethelites put out and say, look how stupid these Jehovah's are by keeping Christmas lights up year-round? The hell's the difference, Let? Because it's still viewed as Christmas lights. This is how stupid these men are.
Well, many Jehovah's Witnesses, your mom used to have them out in her cabana year-round.
And I even made the comment, why do you get Christmas lights up? Well, you might as well put them up during Christmas time because they're viewed as Christmas lights.
Well, I can see having them up year-round.
Well,
it's just enjoyable light. It's the right, brightness and stuff. But to take them down for November and December, that's when it gets really dumb.
But you have to remember who your audience is.
True.
Stupid Jehovah Witnesses. Uninformed people. I guarantee you my mother's going to watch this and she's never going to reflect on, but wait a minute. If it's a conscience matter now, then it should have been a conscience matter all along. Why is Jehovah confusing me? They'll never see it, Kim.
Oh, well, why don't we play a clip about that?
Okay.
All right.
Well, what have we learned? Jehovah doesn't burden us with endless rules.
So you notice in there he says, Jehovah doesn't burden us with rules. But they do. They've been burdening us with rules since the 60s when, my mom started studying and all the rules and everything that we had to endure. It was a burden.
What about your hair length? Wasn't
Beards?
that a rule? What about
Beards.
beards? What was it? What about if you can't get 10 hours a month in the field service, we can't use you to pass mics. You know, the measure of a man's spirituality was based upon how many hours they got in service. That was a rule. And I don't care what these guys say, because what these guys say in front of the camera is probably 10 times different than what your local jackass elder is going to tell you.
Well, what about the rules they made for the bedroom between married people?
Exactly.
Or maybe someone, you know, who was leaning towards gay or LGBTQ, you know, or a different gender. Look at the rules they made about that.
Yeah, well, you know what? Even though this pinhead right here is trying to make it look like they're softening the rules by making them conscience matters, how many Jehovah's died refusing blood fractions? How many?
Just
But
one
yet-
a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, but years later, after you made a rule, blood fractions is against God's law, now you say, oh, it's a conscience matter. How many people died because of your rules?
Well, look at my friend. Her dad
Yeah.
died because they wouldn't even listen to her that fractions were
Yeah, a conscience matter
a
now.
conscious matter now. Imagine how angry she is at Watchtower and the governing body and her JW family now because her dad died needlessly.
But can you imagine how angry anybody would be when you try to present to those jackasses in the hospital liaison committee? Wouldn't even look at the article showing that it was now a conscience matter. They wouldn't even look at it. So it doesn't matter what this little pinhead says on JW Broadcasting. The elders are going to do what elders want to do, and it's going to cost you your life.
Yeah.
They'll never get it, dear.
Yes. And yes, he is loud and angry and shouting at the camera because he's very passionate about this, and we see all these horror stories behind the scenes.
I'm shouting at the idiocracy that's the Watchtower Bible Crap Society.
Yeah.
That's who my message is for. Because if you're already awake and out of Watchtower, I'm not talking to you because you already know what the truth is and who these people are. And most of you that have been with this channel for a very, very long time, you will have heard me say time and time again, they have to change their business model because the business model of the generation in 1914 is dead and gone. And this little pinhead has not gone to heaven yet, because remember what Tony the Turd Morris said, oh, we're all going to go to heaven and we're going to bring the Great Tribulation or Armageddon with Jesus. It's never going to happen because they're referring to a book that's nothing but Roman propaganda. But they'll never study, they'll never research, and they'll never come to this conclusion because they don't want to study and research.
Wouldn't we all love to have the governing body tied up in chairs all sitting right in front of us and listen to all of us? We each take turns telling them exactly how we have felt about them and how they destroyed our families and how many of us still have PTSD from their rules that they enforced.
And now here they are, like I said, they're changing their business model, but they're not going to do it all in one day. They have to do it in baby steps so that the JW, like my mother and her family, can't really recognize just how hot that pot of water is getting on that frog. They'll never get it.
That's always a good analogy.
Yeah, just like that pinhead Ted Cruz. He's sitting in front of Tucker Carlson talking about the nation of Israel, and Ted Cruz has got the nerve to quote Genesis 12:2, where Yahweh says, and I shall make a great nation out of you, speaking to Abraham, and I shall bless you, and I will make your name great, and prove yourself a blessing. Verse 3, and I will bless those who bless you, and him that calls down evil upon you I shall curse, and all the families of the ground will certainly bless themselves by means of you. How many thousands of years have passed since this passage was written or spoken to Abraham? Are the nations blessing each other? Hell, Israel hasn't even been blessed because their God Yahweh allowed them to be decimated by the Babylonians, by the Romans.
Oh, everybody through thousands of years.
Yeah, but what Ted Cruz doesn't realize is what's recorded at Ezekiel 20:25, where Yahweh says, I let them have bad regulations. So Ted Cruz is following a God that admits himself he let the nation of Israel have bad regulations. He let them have that. How is that a blessing to the nation of Israel? It's not.
Well, that's why some in the government are using that to say we have to help Israel. We have to pay for their war and all of this. We have to help their side of it because they are following a book.
Yeah.
And you were watching a video, and I thought the good old fart made a good point.
He made a good point.
Because he says the Word. It's not the book, the Bible. The Word, John 1:1.
The Word is Jesus.
Jesus Christ.
It ain't a book. Remember how much criticism we got a few years ago when I said that Jehovah's Witnesses are nothing but book worshipers? They all worship the book. Because the Bible very plainly says that, and in the beginning the Word was, and the Word was, blah, 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 and the Word is Jesus. However you want to quote that.
It doesn't say the Bible.
It doesn't say the Bible. It says Jesus.
It's talking about
They'll
Jesus.
never connect. Another thing that Ted Cruz misses completely is this.
Did he make you angry?
Well, I wanted to do a video all by itself because it's so friggin' ridiculous. I mean, Ezekiel 16:1-4. The cord with Canaan was never cut. That even means when Jehovah was talking to Abraham.
Well, in the first century, isn't there a scripture in the New Testament about your house has been abandoned to you?
Your house has been abandoned to you. So Ted Cruz, why are you sticking with the nation of Israel when even their God Yahweh says that he's going to abandon them? I've done videos before showing the scriptures where Yahweh's not even listening to their prayers. And yet here you dumb, stupid people are giving away our valid tax dollars for a no good cause. And this is where Ted Cruz really misses the mark.
Well, look at the Jew that came after us.
Yeah.
The Jewish, Orthodox Jew, I believe she was, or whoever it was, came after us and was so arrogant that they are God's chosen people. No, you're not. He abandoned you.
Yep, exactly.
Thousands of years ago.
And that doesn't come from the New Testament. That comes from the Old Testament. See, all of these things that I'm saying right now, such as Old Testament, is stuff that other religious content creators are putting out there. If you haven't taken the time to see what these other religious nut jobs are doing, you're never going to be informed. I mean, even Wes Huff, that Calvinist, is getting destroyed right now because of the crap that's coming out of his mouth.
Well, look at all the Calvinists back in 2018 that came after us.
Yeah.
The most nasty, hateful people.
Yep, exactly. Right here, Isaiah 19, verse 24 and 25. In that day, Israel will come to be the third with Egypt. The third? Why not number one? And with Assyria, namely a blessing in the midst of the earth. So Assyria and Egypt are going to be the blessing in the earth? Verse 25, because Jehovah of armies will have blessed it, saying, blessed be my people Egypt, in the work of my hands Assyria, and my inheritance Israel. They're not.
So there's three of them.
Yeah.
A trinity.
There's your trinity right there. See, Kim, this day and age, it is so easy to debunk the crap that's been out there for eons. I've been making black powder for what, four years now, my own gunpowder, and in all of that, I've come to understand a few certain things. Right now, there's a lot of people out there that say this gunpowder, Swiss, is the best of the best. But this is what they say themselves. Swiss black powder has long been considered the best in black powder due to the long tradition of black powder production dedicated to quality in components and workmanship. This black powder is made entirely with alder buckthorn with a heavy graphite glazing. Now,
Because they say so.
because they say so, but see, this is what the qualifier is. Okay, reading from another source, Swiss black powder. It is made in the same factory and in the same way since 1843 when the factory started. Okay, here's the problem. They don't make it the same way anymore because now they add graphite to it, and graphite by itself in powder form is a added explosive, and it makes their gunpowder dirty now. So it's not the best, because I make gunpowder that's cleaner than Swiss. Would you like to see it? Hold on. So for the benefit of those that are not familiar with black powder and what it does and how it's used, you know, back in the day before they had modern cartridges with modern gunpowder, everybody was shooting what they call black powder. There's 3 components to black powder: potassium nitrate, a charcoal source, and sulfur. Swiss and a lot of your modern day gunpowder manufacturers add graphite to it just simply because the potassium nitrate on itself, it draws moisture into it. So when it's one of the 3rd components of black powder, you leave it out of its container, it can draw moisture to the gunpowder, and it'll weaken it. That's why you have the saying, keep your powder dry. Somewhere in the late 1800s, closer to 1900, they discovered the benefit of graphiting the black powder, because graphite in itself is a moisture inhibitor. So coating the black powder with graphite helped keep moisture from getting into that potassium nitrate. But with the invention of modern gunpowder, smokeless powder, the United States, the manufacturers, got away from trying to do any more improvements. Swiss claims that they've continued to improve upon it, but I'm going to try to show everybody right here that they did not really improve upon it by putting a heavy graphite glazing. Now, when it comes to flintlocks in particular, you have a little touch hole, and you have a flash pan that you put a little bit of black powder right here, and that black powder burns from here to the touch hole. It's been my experience with this Swiss, after 3 or 4 shots, I have to vent pick my touch hole because the smoky residue and the crap left behind plugs the hole. Let me show you. And as you can see, I've cleaned the board. This is what they call 3F. It's a pretty fine powder, but this is Swiss. And Swiss right now is $35 a pound for this gunpowder. But watch what it does, and I'll show you the aftermath on the block. Okay, you can look at that. You can see, I'm going to rub it a little bit. On the finger, it's pretty clean. And I don't know how well the camera's picking it up, but there's a large smoky residue. That's what's being left behind with the graphite. And the graphite is an added explosive. Now let me burn some of my homemade gunpowder that I made with peanut shell as the charcoal source. So by volume, I'm only burning 30 grains of powder. Typically, the way I shoot about 80 grains. So I would be burning, 2.5 times more of this amount in my flintlock. There's that gunpowder, my homemade gunpowder. It's just as clean, if not a little cleaner. Here's the Swiss side, and here's my side. If you can look at that, you can see that not only is there a heavy smoky residue left behind, my gunpowder doesn't. So the day and age that we are living in, things can get challenged like this, and you can easily believe your eyes now instead of what somebody is telling you what's what. So let me give you just a different angle. This is the Swiss. Hopefully you can pick up the smoky residue and just look at what I would consider dirty. And this is my gunpowder. You may not be able to pick up the subtleties through the camera, but they are there. Okay, back to our video.
So we hope you've enjoyed this little rant. I mean, it's so infuriating, you know, and I know some say, oh, Mike, it's just shouting and loud and obnoxious. But the thing is when you've been doing this as long as we have, we become passionate about this because we have seen so much damage, so many families destroyed, so many lives destroyed and lost because of their rules. And now they're saying we don't make rules. It's up to your conscience, your Bible-trained conscience. Well, even just a few years ago, it wasn't your Bible-trained conscience, whether you decided on certain, you know, health things that you wanted to do. No, they made rules.
That's right.
And there was even fights in congregations. And they even told elders, if you are negative against certain, you know, jabs, medical, you know, things, that you could be removed. So they were even threatening elders with rules that if they were speaking negatively against, you know, the pharmaceuticals,
That's right.
they could be removed. Oh, but see, they forget all of this.
But yet, doesn't Watchtower have stock in stuff in
Yeah,
Pfizer?
and several.
Of course
you know,
they're gonna push
Johnson
it.
Johnson, Pfizer, you know, Merck, all of them. They've all got stock in it, and I've done several videos proving that.
But the average Jehovah Witness will not sit down and do their study and research. There are a lot doing it, yes. That's why we call them PMOs. And all you need to do is go online and you'll start seeing the photos start coming up how empty their coliseums are. How empty the floor is. I mean, remember, when we were Jehovah's Witnesses, come lunchtime, a lot of them would flee to the facilities and go out to their favorite restaurant, right? And then all of a sudden, a rule, brothers and sisters, we need you to stay inside and bring your own lunch because we need you to be with the brothers the entire time that we're here. And how many quit going out for lunch and brought their own? That was another rule that they made.
Oh, they have made so many rules. We would be here for weeks just talking about all the rules that they made.
Yeah. Yeah. So just continue to be the bobblehead you are because you're nothing but a mouthpiece yourself.
Well, like I said, I didn't even recognize them.
No. Unbelievable. Just unbelievable that they're still pushing this crap without any apologies. Without a single apology for those that have died because you changed the rules on blood fractions.
Or were disfellowshipped.
Or were disfellowshipped.
Imagine how many people are so angry. And then you wonder why we're all on YouTube doing these videos. Because we're angry.
Well, I gotta wonder, just to push back a little bit, those that think I'm bitter and angry and I shout at the camera, why ain't you doing it? Why ain't you doing it? Instead, you come after me because you don't like the way I present it. Well, I got news for you. I ain't changing. Because these people are killing human beings with their rules. Even though they're trying to change and soften it a little bit, I just go back to what I said earlier. Told you so.
Okay.
What do I know?
What about the rules or their custom that they haven't reported CSA?
Yeah.
And they say the elders now report CSA to the authorities, but we know they don't. I mean, just the elders' letter I read just the other day.
Exactly.
There was one thing in there that I caught. It's if there is even an accusation of a Bethel worker to contact headquarters in the legal department. So obviously they're having a problem with Bethel workers or, you know, special workers or something. And I know there's a lawsuit going on right now that when a family was visiting Bethel, I think the parents were working there, the little girl was being abused, and they did nothing. They knew the father was abusing
Yeah.
her, and they did nothing. So what about that custom?
Well-
and those rules.
What about the rule in your holy book that says you must be holy because Jehovah is holy? How is it a holy act when you're changing the rules?
Yeah, they're changing the rules on everybody.
You're worshiping a God of confusion because he can't keep it straight himself.
Well, like the clip we played at the beginning with Loesch, they're still roving about. Well, their roving about is killing people and destroying families.
Okay, so you got let using all these other scriptures from the apostle go nowhere Paul. Why didn't they use the scripture from Jesus about the blind leading the blind? Will they not both fall into the pit? If Loesch is saying we're still roving about, then guess what, Jehovah's Witnesses? You're going to fall into the pit too.
Well, I
They
think
can't reason.
I think what this all boils down to, that, like you said, it's just like the frog. You
Yeah.
put in the water and then gradually turn up the heat. This is all working towards them trying to become a mainstream religion instead of a damaging extremist cult.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's what they're trying to do, in my humble opinion.
Well, here's the thing. It's not a humble opinion. It's something that you can observe and conclude yourself. How many other people on YouTube have now identified the Jehovah's Witnesses as a cult? And I'm not talking about ex-Jehovah's Witnesses. There are many other people, even psychologists now, recognize these people as a cult, a destructive cult. But if you're not on YouTube watching the same stuff that we are, you're never going to see this.
Well, there was a young man in Parliament that the clip is going around. And if I can find it again, I'll put the clip down below. I did not know. I just found out that he's actually an ex-JW.
Yeah.
And he was the youngest voted to Parliament. He's an MP in England.
Yeah.
And he's talking about Jehovah's Witnesses as a cult.
And what was it that I said years and years and years ago, that Watchtower needs to watch out, because these members that are leaving, they're going to become part of the government, and then they're going to put the noose around your neck. And that's what's happening, because we see one in Japan.
Yeah, she was a
became-
senator.
That's right. And it's going to happen even more now, Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
hey, what do I know?
Exactly. Well, there was even, I sent the investigators I'm working with, I sent one of them the clip to the MP, you know, there in Parliament about a damaging cult, and I sent him a few other things. And so this investigator, he's never been a JW, and he says, it's sad how much damage this cult has done. Those were his exact words. So they even recognize it's a cult, and they are damaging people, and they've destroyed most of our lives and families.
Yeah.
You know,
But-
so much damage. And that is why we're trying to speak out and expose them, because of the damage they have done in the past. At least the Catholic Church has apologized to their CSA survivors and have, you know, set up funds. There's still a lot of dioceses filing for bankruptcy and having to sell their property to pay all of these lawsuits. But do you think Watchtower will ever be that humble?
No. No,
They're not
it's
going
not
to
gonna
admit.
happen.
They're still fighting tooth and nail in courts, trying to get out of paying all of these lawsuits.
How can they ever apologize when they're still roving about? See, when you say words like that, you have no reason to apologize, because you're still roving about. Do you trust the faithful slave? Jesus does.
Well, the blind leading the blind, and we know what happens to them. They fall in a pit.
Yeah,
both of them.
exactly. I mean, this stuff is
We
so...
can only hope.
For me now, this stuff is just a walk in the park, because I see it everywhere, from stupid comments, from Wes Huff,
Politicians.
politicians. It's everywhere now. But it shows you how much people are now really paying attention to what in the hell is going on in this world, and what has been going on behind closed doors.
Yeah. And we won't even start on Elon Musk.
Yeah, no, don't get me going on Elon Musk.
They're all a bunch of 5-year-olds, I swear.
Yeah, exactly.
So thank you for staying with us to the end. We appreciate it. And we appreciate all the cards and emails and, phone calls and everything. We do appreciate all of you. And it's still the 4th of July weekend, so you have a safe and a wonderful weekend.
Bye.
Bye.